Decision 15, San Antonio Mayoral Debate.
Good evening and welcome to News 4 San Antonio's Decision 2015, the Mayoral Debate. I'm Randy Beamer. And Election Day is coming up in San Antonio, May 9th, coming up quickly here. Voters are going to decide on several issues. Charter amendments will be on the ballot. We will also be electing council members in all 10 districts and a mayor. And with us tonight, four of the candidates for mayor, the leading candidates in alphabetical order. First, we have former County Commissioner Tommy Adkisson, San Antonio's interim mayor, Ivy Taylor, former state senator Leticia Van De Putte, and former state representative Mike Villarreal. And we will be live right now on News 4 San Antonio for the next half hour. Then we will continue for the half hour after that, streaming on our website, News 4 San Antonio. Now, the rules the candidates have agreed to are kind of loose, but it's for each of my questions. Each of the candidates will get 1 minute for an answer, unless you can keep it shorter, and you get bonus points for that. They'll also be seeing a yellow card letting them know when they have 15 seconds left. A red card means time's up. They are out. And we also want to let you know that we will be getting in as many questions as we can, as many issues. And in lieu of a traditional opening statement, what I'd like to do is just a first simple question you may have is, what are your top 3 priorities in order for San Antonio, and any concrete actions that you can take with the council on those top 3 issues? I know that's a lot to answer in a minute, but I think you can do it. We're going to start alphabetically again with Tommy Adkisson. Tommy?
Thank you very much, Randy, and thanks to the station here for making sure that we had an opportunity to visit over these very vital issues. What I would like to see is that neighborhoods are given every measure of respect and decency that they have long lacked when you come to the reality that San Antonio is a very old city, about 200 or more years old, and a lot of old neighborhoods, a lot of new neighborhoods that are going to get old. The question is when and how they will get old. The other thing I think is important is to make sure that we get back to basics, and those basics mean road infrastructure, crime-free, safe, and sustainable neighborhoods, flood control, making sure that our neighborhoods are walkable, make sure that we support local businesses to expand. And then finally, I would like to work with the county on making sure that the roughly 100,000 people that have come out of institutions of incarceration or in the criminal justice system would be properly dealt with so they're ready to go back to functionality.
All right, Mayor Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's been an incredible privilege to serve as your mayor since last July. Since that time, there are some top issues that I've been focusing on and would like the opportunity to continue focusing on. San Antonio being economically competitive. And in order for us to do that, it's so important that we invest in ourselves, invest in our infrastructure, our capital infrastructure, our streets and drainage and roads, and also investing in our people. So I've focused very much on workforce development to ensure that San Antonians have the education and skills to compete for tomorrow's jobs. And then it's important that we have a safe, a smart, fiscally responsible city government. That's been a top priority, and I'll continue to work on that. And then finally, that we work together as one San Antonio. I believe in uniting us behind our common interests and our collective vision for a prosperous community.
All right, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Senator Van De Putte.
Thank you so much, Randy, and I'm really proud to be here with 3 very wonderful public servants and folks that I consider my friends. You know, the priorities for San Antonio really should reflect the will of the people who live here. And I know, importantly, as mayor, I would focus on those priorities. You've asked for 3. Number 1, we keep taxes low. We make sure that we address our infrastructure, roads, drainage, sidewalks. That is the first priority of the city. Second would be public safety, to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe, that our children are free in all neighborhoods to play in the front yard. We need to get the police and fire contracts done and do so in a fair manner so that we can use that money for extra police force. We're growing rapidly. And then it's about workforce. It's about the jobs, creating the jobs and keeping the jobs. We need to make sure that San Antonians are ready and our students are ready for their next skill set, we can make a great San Antonio.
All right, thank you, Senator. And Representative Villarreal.
Randy, that's a very good question. For myself, I have one overarching goal, and that is to make San Antonio a city of opportunity for our families. To make sure that our city is the place our young people and our adults who earn an education, acquire 21st century skills, see our hometown as the place to start small businesses, launch their careers, raise their families. To get there, we need to make sure that we keep our finances strong. I'll use my background in economics and finance to ensure that we scrub the budget and that we negotiate from a position of strength with our police union, because we want more public safety. And to do that, we have to make it more affordable. Finally, I want to help San Antonians get unstuck from traffic so that we can all spend more time with the ones we love.
All right, thanks, Representative. Now, the first, I guess, real question I have for you, transportation traffic in this growing city, projected to grow to 1 million people at 2040, by 2040, the latest projection. We have had a strong push here against toll roads, or toll lanes. With that growth projected, what can you and will you do now to fix both the problems that we have around San Antonio and to plan for the future and that extra 1 million people we will have here? And we'll start with Mayor Taylor.
Well, first off, I think it's important that we develop transportation options that are meaningful and relevant and will help us to reduce congestion and get San Antonians from point A to point B in a speedy fashion. That's why, as mayor, I put an end to the streetcar project, which many viewed as wasteful and not an opportunity to get San Antonians from place to place. We have a great chance right now to develop a plan, a transportation plan that can help guide our development and help us figure out what are the best ways for us to invest dollars in expanding transportation options. Certainly, we have to work with VIA, our Metropolitan Transit Authority, which provides bus rapid transit as well as many other options to get people out of their cars. I think that we can also talk about what the other options are. It's very important, though, that if we look at options like rail, that San Antonians would have a voice. And so I encourage folks to go out and vote in relation to that option. It is on the ballot. San Antonians have to have a voice in major projects.
All right, thanks, Leticia.
You know, it is so annoying and difficult when San Antonians are stuck in traffic. It's time away from your job and productivity and your family. But it is tragic when you get that phone call that one of your family members has been involved in a fatal accident. As mayor, you will have the opportunity to select someone who can work with others at the state and federal level to maximize our funds. And that's what it's about. It's the money that we're going to need to build out our infrastructure, those connectors. I would work with VIA and make sure that we expand that bus rapid transit. The idea that we could get the centers of where people live and make sure that they have the opportunity to ride the bus. I'm excited about the new bus ride at 1604 and 281. And finally, I would make sure that we would use every opportunity to listen to the people before any decisions are ever made on light rail or streetcar.
All right, Mike.
We need more transportation options in San Antonio. And so as your mayor, I will focus on adding more options, including expanding highway capacity so that there is an added lane, which is an HOV lane, so that our bus rapid transit system can work effectively. And those that carpool can also use that lane. We also need to get serious about this concept of complete streets, where we build our streets so that they're not just safe for cars, but when we want to walk, take a stroll, or ride a bike, they are also safe for us. So they have a protected bike lane and a wider sidewalk. We need to do better about these basics. As your mayor, I will also bring back rideshare companies, Uber and Lyft. San Antonians need more transportation options. As your mayor, I'll make sure it happens.
All right, thanks. Tommy?
Well, this is one of those many problems that doesn't have a silver bullet to it, but I like to say that it has a whole collection of silver BBs, and taken together provide some powerful buckshot as a solution. I think that at the county we showed leadership by extending to the state credit to make sure that they had the ability to do Blanco and Culebra and 1604 East, but also to increase the registration fee so that we could provide local revenue, local sources of revenue. We passed the Advanced Transportation District to bolster VIA's efforts. We passed Prop 1, which will give us about $100 million to this community. That was all done while I was commissioner. I think also we need to reestablish the older urban corridors to make sure that they take 10, 15, 20% of the traffic off the expressways, but will require a coordinator. And then we need urban planning that doesn't have everybody marching to one end of the county to the derogation at all.
All right, and we want to move on now to the plan to solve the negotiations with the police union. Leticia, you have been criticized. I want to have you anticipate some of that you got the endorsement of the police union and that effectively ended the negotiations. First of all, where do each of you stand on the negotiations with the fire and police unions, and what do you have to say specifically about that criticism?
Thank you very much. I am very proud to have the endorsement of the men and women who put their lives on the line every single day. We know that it has been so difficult in this last year, trying to get to a place where this is fair for our police officers and firefighters and fair for the city. It's taken way too long. And I know that there are those that would criticize because they didn't get the endorsement of police, that somehow or another I cut a deal. Let me tell you, nothing is further from the truth. The reason that I have the support from those men and women who protect us is built on 2 decades of work in the legislature, looking out for San Antonio. But it's not just police or fire. It's business, it's education. They know that I'm a leader that can get things done and keep our fiscal health from the city from going anywhere negative. I'll treat people with respect and get this contract done.
All right, Mike?
The single most important issue facing City Hall right now is getting this contract right. And so I have to ask the voters, how important is it to you that your city leaders keep their word? We know from independent media reports that Leticia Van De Putte made a commitment to a group of business leaders that she would back city leaders in their legal challenge of a certain provision in the police union contract in order to gain their support, and then told the police union the exact opposite to earn their endorsement. You can take a stand, but you can't take 2 stands that are the exact opposite. On this issue, I've been crystal clear. We need more public safety, and the way to do that is to make sure it is more affordable. I will unite our city council to get behind the principle of financial sustainability so that we as a city keep our finances strong and our taxes low.
All right, thanks, Mike. Tommy?
Well, I think it starts with having not having a power vacuum at City Hall. Power vacuum is caused when a mayor decides to do something besides be mayor, and it takes an inordinate amount of time from the schedule. I think that that's something that allows the city manager, who had to throw or felt like she had to throw herself into the breach to fill the power vacuum that was left. And I don't think that the city manager is the best one to effectuate an agreement. I think the elected official, especially the mayor, the top elected official, needs to wade in there, roll up their sleeves, get back to the bargaining table, let them all know that everybody's going to feel a little pain, okay? This is not a slam dunk. This is not one situation where you come out unscathed or you get everything you want. As a family lawyer, we have often said that if each side is a little, not a lot, a little bit upset, it's probably a good divorce. And here we have an opportunity to have a good settlement.
All right, thanks, Ivy.
Thank you so much for this extremely important question. Well, when I became mayor last year, there really was no negotiating going on. I felt it was critical, though, that we resolve this issue in the best interest of our San Antonio taxpayers. And so I worked really hard to bring both sides back to the table. And we had several productive meetings and brought proposals back and forth and got very close to a resolution. When I decided to run for mayor, I made it very clear that I was not going to seek or accept an endorsement from the police union because I felt that this issue should not be in the political arena. It needed to be focused on what was in the best interest of our taxpayers. And so I did not accept the endorsement. The endorsement that has been given has squarely placed this issue in the political arena, and I believe that that demonstrates a focus on self-interest and not on community interests. I remain steadfast in my commitment to resolving this issue to provide the best contract possible and benefits possible that we can afford within the constraints that we have in our San Antonio budget.
All right, thanks. And I just want to let you know there could be some good back and forth on this, and maybe in the second half hour when we go to the web and off TV, that we might allow you to, we'll free up the rules and let you maybe come back and forth and have a little rebuttal on that. Moving on now, though, this question is for Mike. Unemployment down in San Antonio compared to the rest of the state and the nation, but wages have been stagnant for a lot of workers, especially those in the inner city. What can you do specifically? I know you've answered some of these questions before at other debates, and you could probably answer each other's questions. But what can you do specifically and tell people out there to help bring higher paying jobs to all of San Antonio?
The way that we can raise the wages of San Antonians so that they can provide for their families and get ahead in life is by increasing their productivity. Now, how do you do that? Through education. Through creating a system where our young people in high school and adults who want to come back to school have access to quality job training that leads to better jobs. As your mayor, I will make sure that we build out that system, working in conjunction with our biggest employers and our education leaders. We can do this. In fact, we already have some examples of success where we're doing it in IT, that's information technology, and also in manufacturing, specifically for Toyota. We need to expand these models of training our people so that they can get connected to the kind of jobs that aren't just jobs, but they're careers that will enable them to keep climbing a ladder.
All right, Tommy?
Well, it seems to me that increasing wages starts with great education. If you have a great education, you're going to get a great job eventually, if not right at the outset, and you're going to be well taken care of in terms of your compensation. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Al Arreola, who is the president of the South Chamber, in his efforts to go to each of the school boards in the immediate area that he represents as the chamber president and acknowledge his role in catalyzing and connecting with leadership, elected leadership on those boards to settle the dust of disputes that go on and to make sure that they're meeting benchmarks that are meaningful to all of us. The citizen advocacy role is a big deal. I think the mayor has an opportunity not to jump in, not to intervene, not to intrude in the school district's business, but to simply be a friend, a supporter, a catalyst for great things.
All right, Ivy?
Well, this is an issue that I feel very passionately about. We want to provide more opportunities for more San Antonians to connect to the growth and prosperity that is happening in our community right now. And we can only do that if San Antonians are prepared and have the education necessary for them to be able to take advantage of the jobs that are being created and the jobs that actually go unfilled right now. And so as mayor, I have focused on having strong partnerships with our K through 12 education system and working with our superintendents and the school districts and school boards, but beyond that, to think about the San Antonians that have already gone beyond K through 12. And I have worked to create more opportunities for them to connect through Alamo colleges and ensure that Alamo colleges works with our industries in developing programs that will prepare students. So actually just today I signed letters inviting important key community leaders to participate in a workforce oversight committee so that they can work directly with Alamo colleges to ensure that they provide the education and training that San Antonians need.
Leticia?
Well, these are the facts. San Antonio has a 3.8% unemployment rate. And when I hear from my friends and our business leaders, and particularly the members of the San Antonio Manufacturers Association, they tell me that they have many jobs that they cannot fill. We know that in 2020, 65% of the jobs in this town will require a post-high school something, whether that's a certification program, a licensure, an associate's degree, or a 4-year college diploma. As mayor, I would work with our school districts, with our Alamo colleges, and with those who deal in technical training to fill that middle skills gap. We know that it is so important for this to be business driven as well. I know that I have convened people before and worked on it. We can work together to make sure that San Antonio has that workforce and make sure that we've got the jobs, not just of today, but of the future.
All right, now moving on, we may have time for one more question here while we're on the air here on News 4. Again, we're going to go to news4sanantonio.com where it's streaming right now as well at 7 o'clock. But the charter amendment, one of them that you'll be voting on this May, would raise the pay for city council members from about $20 a meeting as it is now to the median income in San Antonio, close to $46,000. And also the mayor's salary would go from just over $4,000 a year that it is now up to $62,000 a year. So for each of you, are you for that amendment? And if so, why? If not, why not? Tommy?
Absolutely for it. I think that it's long overdue, has been for a long time. The fact of the matter is the mayor and the council have got to be at the apex of City Hall. And how can they do that if they're on their knees financially? I don't think it's easily done. I think we have to value people's credentials and their qualities. Just take a look, for instance, at what good educated, smart policy people like Dr. Sil Pettis at SAISD has done as their superintendent, or Dr. Saavedra, the former Houston ISD superintendent at South San, and other districts around the community. They are well compensated, they're delivering the goods, and I think that good public officials at least require that they not be on their financial knees.
Ivy?
I strongly support this measure, and as your mayor, I put together the Charter Commission group that has proposed it. Let me tell you why I support it. Because it strengthens our democracy here in San Antonio. It's not right that certain people can't even think about the possibility of running for city council because they can't afford it. Right now, if you're a retiree or if you're a young person just starting out your career, it might make sense for you to take on that challenge. But I believe that all San Antonians who are qualified and have that passionate commitment to our city should have the ability and the opportunity to run for city council, and I believe that having salaries makes that more of a reality. In addition, think about the size of our city. We're a city of 1.4 million people. Each council member has more than 100,000 constituents. Certainly it's a full-time job attending to their needs, and we want them to focus on just that. And so I urge everyone to support this charter amendment.
Leticia?
Think back to 1951 and where San Antonio was and how large we were and what sort of city government we had. At that time, maybe this was considered a part-time job. And the pay, $20 a meeting. I support the charter amendment on council pay because it robs voters of their choice of council members and the mayor. We know that so much has changed. Our city, soon to be the 5th largest city in the country, and it is a full-time job. I support it, and I will be voting yes.
Mike?
I support the amendment to our charter. I think it has the effect of allowing more people to serve at City Hall. It will allow our council members and our mayor time to focus on the task at hand, which is overseeing our city government and setting and pursuing aspirational goals for our city. For me, is it a priority? No. My priority is making sure that we keep our city's finances rock solid so that we can keep our taxes low, that we prioritize transportation so that fewer of us, more of us, can not be stuck in traffic, but free to have time with our families. Ultimately, we need to strengthen our city by focusing on the things that turn San Antonio into a city of opportunity for all of our people.
All right, now we've gone a minute on each of those answers and we've highlighted some of the things you agree on. We have less than a couple minutes now, so we're going to go off the clock, and I'm just going to ask you a couple of things that I think will distinguish between some of you, say on the Uber Lyft issue and the ride-sharing ordinance, that proposal. Mayor Taylor, you supported the ride-sharing proposal, which Uber says forced them out of the city. I'm just going to ask you, say in 10 seconds each, why did you support that? And some of the others here would not do that. What would you say to what they had to say?
The rideshare ordinance that the council passed provided a sensible framework that would allow Uber and Lyft and TNCs to operate in San Antonio and ensure the safety of our public. They chose not to operate here because of fingerprint background checks. We have to make sure our citizens are safe.
All right, Leticia?
I support San Antonians having options, and was quite embarrassed to see what has happened. We know that these companies operate in other cities. We need to make sure, though, that this public safety issue is taken care of first. There's a way to get there. We just need a strong mayor and a council that can really look at what is the benefit of the people of this community while ensuring that public safety.
Mike?
I'm the only candidate that has been for rideshare from the very beginning of this public debate. And the reason is because our city has too few transportation options, and our city is suffering from a problem of drunk driving. With these problems in hand, rideshare is a solution, helping more people get safely from point A to point B. For those that have had one too many to drink, it's a public safety solution to get home without getting behind the wheel.
We're about out of time. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance on this one. On the air, Tommy?
Everything in public life and a lot in private life is a process. And I think that the technological advancements of Uber and Lyft are to be applauded. What I would also say, though, is there needs to be a process that allows this to be properly vetted and for us to have an opportunity to look at it. There was a time in my life when I didn't like okra, but I learned it was okay.
Okay. And with that, it's dinner time. We're about out of time. Thank you all for being here on the air. Again, they're going to be staying here with us for the next half hour on news4sanantonio.com. Thanks for joining us, and switch over to the web. Wanted to move on to some of those specific issues. Want to thank those of you for joining us just on News 4 San Antonio right now. We got to ask some of them questions here, the four candidates for mayor in our studios. Some of them some questions. We're going to be a little bit more specific maybe now, ask them to be more specific and maybe free up the rules so they can get a little bit of back and forth if they think that deserves it. And I reserve the right to step in and play parent. All right, first of all, want to move on to education. Each of you talked earlier about education, the importance of education, but specifics on that. Again, San Antonio will grow by 1 million people by the year 2040, and much of that growth, of course, is from people who are moving here. But oftentimes, let's be honest, real estate agents say, stay away from that area because of the schools. It also has meant for the city, frankly, decaying areas, aging populations in the shrinking school districts, and growth, sprawl, all kinds of traffic issues in those growing. How specifically can San Antonio specifically improve education? Pre-K for SA was sometimes criticized as the one thing San Antonio was not able to do or should not have done. That's not their purview. What can you do as mayor to help school districts, to help parts of town and education at the same time? And I believe now we'll start with Leticia.
Thank you. You know, I live in a neighborhood that I grew up in, right off Sarsamora Street. And it's the place where Pete and I have raised our 6 children, and now that house is filled with the laughter of 6, soon to be 8, nearly perfect grandchildren. What we've seen in our community, though, in just the last 2 years, are younger families moving in, and particularly families with young girls. Why? Because we have an exemplary school in Woodlawn Academy, and just down the street, the Young Women's Leadership Academy, where 99% of those young women go to college and receive great financial aid and scholarships. As mayor, I know that we can work with our school districts. I've done it before. challenging folks, making sure that they've got the best interest of our students at heart. People want to live in neighborhoods where there are great schools. And I know that they utilize the early college schools that we have. That was a bill that I passed. And I know also that we can take the types of dual credit programs to make sure that our students, when graduating, are ready for the next step. The mayor is not on the school board. The mayor is not on the Alamo College's board. But the mayor can act as a leader and bring people together, put our focus on what's right for our students. You get great schools, we're going to have great neighborhoods.
All right. I'm not sure if they had the clock on here still or not, but I'll act as the clock. Mike?
You know, I want to share a quick story about parental involvement and shifting more local control down to the campus level. My wife and I chose to raise our family in an inner city neighborhood near downtown in the San Antonio ISD school district. I got involved in our neighborhood school community before my oldest, Bella, became school age. I and other parents got organized. We brought together other parents and took a request to our school board that they allow us to become a campus-based charter, allowing us parents to be a part of redefining the school and shifting more control to our principal, our teachers, and the parents there. Today, that neighborhood school of SAISD is at capacity and has to turn away families, 75 to 100 every year. This is possible. We can turn around schools in inner city neighborhoods. And as your mayor, I'm going to be an advocate and a champion for these kind of reforms. And I will use the office to hold accountable school board members that make decisions not in the best interest of our students.
Okay, thanks. Tommy?
Well, for nearly all of my life, I have heard the complaints about the various deficiencies of various school districts. And although I am a product of 12 years of Catholic school, I had many, many friends who went through the public system, and they did well. My dad was the head coach of the Harlandale Indians basketball team and a principal in South San. I think that the public system has a lot to offer, but I think the city's role is not to try to get in front of these school districts, but to make sure the neighborhoods are safe and crime-free. Make sure that the neighborhoods have walkability. Make sure that the neighborhood streets are properly paved. Make sure that the codes are being complied with. Make sure that when a person drives through the neighborhood, they say, wow, it's old, but it sure looks nice. And I can think of several neighborhoods that come to mind. Alta Vista, Highland Park. I mean, we can just go on with the list of neighborhoods where people have to be impressed. And that bolsters the school district.
All right, Ivy?
There are three specific things that I've worked on as mayor and would continue working on. First is being very judicious in the use of our city dollars in investing to support nonprofits that provide wraparound services that assist disadvantaged students in achieving better educational outcomes, and also ensuring that we have an educational focus within any programs and facilities that the city provides, like our city libraries. And then secondly, since the time that I was a District 2 council member, and now since I've been mayor, I've been working closely with SAISD on an innovative partnership to improve outcomes at schools on the east side through the Promised Neighborhood Grant. And I think we can replicate that and learn from the lessons through that innovative partnership. And then the third thing is to embrace high-performing charter schools in neighborhoods where we want to see redevelopment, and I've worked on that as well.
All right, I want to move on to another issue we touched on earlier when we were on the air, and that is transportation, because on the ballot are 4 charter amendments, the first of which came out of a petition drive, and that is about light rail, that any project with light rail or streetcar would have to be approved by voters. Now, after that, there was because of a lot of criticism, it was effectively killed. But we got a lot of feedback from people who said they would have been for some kind of light rail if it would have been for either all the city or for the toughest parts where the traffic is to get into downtown and out. Well, first of all, where do you stand, each of you, on the charter amendment proposal? And do you see any light rail down the road that you would be for commuters from 281, 10, 35, or from San Antonio to Austin, and how strongly do you feel that that would help our transportation issues? And I believe this goes to Mike.
Thank you. My priority is to focus our transportation dollars in a way that alleviates traffic where it is the worst and helps connect people where they live to where they work. So it's important that we spend and invest our limited transportation dollars along congested highways and business corridors. I want us to focus on HOV lanes and supporting bus rapid transit. If we can get this right, we can increase the density, which helps support light rail. I think it is in our future, but we need to get the current facilities and bus system that we have in place stronger, more efficient, and safer.
All right.
Light rail between Austin and San Antonio, I think it makes commuter rail, it makes a lot of sense. It'll strengthen our regional economy and help grow jobs locally.
Would that have to be voted on by voters for you to approve that idea?
I support the proposition that's on the ballot. The reason is that any meaningful transportation project is going to involve public debt. And philosophically, if there is public debt involved, then approving it has to be something greater than a simple majority on council. It should go to the voters for ratification.
Tommy, how do you feel about the charter amendment and about, as he mentioned there, light rail, commuter rail?
I'm for it. I'm not so sure where it will shake out in terms of the commuter rail. I've been sitting on the Lone Star Rail District on behalf of Bexar County for the last 8 or 9 years, and I was there at a time when the legislature didn't appear to even know it existed, much less care about it or fund it, God forbid. There needs to be an effort made to bolster Lone Star Rail District. I think that we have a grand opportunity. As far as voting on it, I have been in more campaigns for and against things. I could care less. Let's do it. Let's take it to a vote. Let's not even create a doubt. Take it in there. You know, we passed the AT&T Center to save the Spurs. I've opposed bills that various referenda that I thought were bad. But let's get out there, and I'm very supportive of this measure. I helped, in fact, instigate, I think, with my letter way in advance of the council.
So you would put something on the ballot for the general public to vote on as a
yes,
commuter rail project?
Just as I asked the city council to do like 15 days before they ever pulled it off. I said, kick it into an election next year, let the people vote on it, and sure enough, it happened.
All right, Ivy?
Yes, I believe citizens should have the opportunity to vote on a rail system, and so yes, I support the charter amendment. As far as our transportation options, what I focus on is connecting our key nodes throughout the city where we have large employment centers or large areas where people live, work, and play. I think the streetcar proposal was unsuccessful, but because people didn't see it as relevant in allowing them the opportunity to actually avoid some of the congested highways or get from place to place. Though it was, I think in the minds of the folks at VIA, it was going to be the starting point for a larger plan, but that didn't get communicated. So now we have the opportunity as a community to be engaged in the development of a multimodal transportation plan, and I encourage folks to become involved in
Would
that.
you support light rail if it was specifically from the north side or busy areas in town into downtown, or commuter rail from San Antonio to Austin?
I could support light rail if it would connect people from places that they need to be and places where they need to go. In relation to commuter rail to Austin, I think it's a great idea. Right now, we don't have in our budget the funding to support it. It would add an extra $20 million in operating funds to our budget, and we have explored using tax increment financing to pay for that, as some other cities have, and our TIF would not generate the needed revenue, so it would be a budgetary issue.
Okay.
But certainly I believe voters should have the option to weigh in on these expensive transportation options.
Leticia?
I believe that voters ought to have a say, particularly in issues that they feel strongly about when we're issuing public debt. But we know that there was much confusion about what the purpose was of this past streetcar or light rail. A lot of people thought they were synonymous, and they were rightly upset because they didn't know how this would affect their families. How would it help them? But I've got to tell you what I'm really concerned about is the ballot language. When I talk to people who say, I want to vote no on streetcar or light rail, they think they're going to come vote no. A no vote on this particular ballot language means I don't want to vote on any future projects. So I have to tell you that I'm quite concerned that what the city ballot language came up with is confusing to people because I've heard it. And so I urge folks to really look at that language. If you would like a say in your tax dollars being used for these transportation options of streetcar and light rail, then you have to vote yes, not no. And I think that that has not been conveyed with anybody.
All right.
I do support the light rail. I do support this, but not until we have the support of everybody. And it's got to be to our major corridors. One of our major employers is the medical center. And we know that those transportation options are not there.
All right, let's follow this up then with toll roads, toll lanes. This is one of those things that everybody's been against. A lot of people have been against. Where do you stand on the latest plans, I guess, to say, for toll lanes? We'll go to Tommy first on this, I think. Toll lanes, toll roads, yay or nay in San Antonio, and how do you deal with the traffic if you don't do those?
Well, first of all,
And again, if we can keep it as quickly as we can.
I give a very cautious and limited nod to them when they went through because it was going to go through whether I was for it or not. But I have fought them for a long time because I felt like there were way too many hogs in the creek. You know what Jim Hightower said, can't clear up the water to get the hogs out of the creek. And there was way too many special interests that I thought were more interested in their own situation rather than the rider who they're going to fleece and flog into eternity.
All right. Ivy?
Well, what we're trying to do is make it easier for people to get home without sitting in traffic. So I believe that many studies have shown that congestion pricing is a way to achieve that. If people want to leave at a certain time, then they would pay a premium. I could support a scenario like that, as well as us looking at expanding all our other transportation options so there aren't as many people on the roads.
Okay. Leticia?
You know, I don't like to pay for toll roads, and I've traveled this state. I just don't like toll roads, but I like what it buys me, and that is a shorter time on the road. And for many people, time is productivity, and time is money. So I really believe that we ought to have that policy very straight, very straightforward, that we do not toll any existing highways or lanes. As an option, local officials should use it, should have the opportunity to look at it, but only if it's that you have an access lane where folks who cannot pay that toll, who refuse to, have access to that highway.
Okay. Mike?
I'm opposed to toll roads that take a lane that's been paid for by tax dollars and charge taxpayers once again for using it. I'm for HOV lanes. I believe the path forward for San Antonio is adding capacity that supports commuters who are willing to carpool and supports a bus rapid transit system. We know that the bus rapid transit system that is emerging with VIA is one that can change the game in transportation in San Antonio by moving people out of their cars and onto a clean, quality, safe bus line that runs like a train.
All right, we're going to open this up now to a little different maybe format and something we touched on earlier that I know some of you wanted to get back and forth on, maybe a little rebuttal. Police fire union in the city negotiations have stopped for whatever reason you may interpret. But again, I'd like to have you talk that out. And Mayor Taylor, why have they stopped? And what can you do to get them started again? Or is it just going to take Election Day?
Well, where we left off was we had some meetings in March where there were some proposals that went back and forth where we were getting closer and closer, the key issues being, of course, wages and health care benefits. And so the endorsement was made by the police union, and then we had a meeting
The
scheduled
endorsement
on,
of Leticia.
yes. And we had a meeting on March 31st where the union said that they would not make any additional proposals. It was their turn to make a proposal to allow us to get even closer and hopefully to the finish line. And so we've asked for additional meetings so that we can continue negotiating. They've indicated that they will take their chances in the political arena. And I feel very strongly that this issue should not be in the political arena, that it's in the best interest of our San Antonio taxpayers as well as for our police officers for us to resolve it in a speedy fashion.
Okay, now, Mike, you mentioned earlier you made some specific blame about a quid pro quo involving the police union and a certain candidate. Tell me that again, and then let Leticia respond.
Randy, first of all, let me just say, this is a very competitive race. And we compete based on a number of factors, including what positions we take. It's really hard to run against somebody who's taking two positions that are the opposite. We know from the Express News that there was a breakfast luncheon at the barn door where a congregation of civic and business leaders came together and specifically asked Leticia, where do you stand on the city's legal challenge of the evergreen clause in the police union contract? This is the clause that puts in place for 10 full years the existing rich benefits in the police contract. She said she would back up the city manager and city leaders. A few days later, we learned from Mike Haley, the union head of the police association, that Leticia promised that she would pull that lawsuit down. In her own words, I believe it was something like, family shouldn't be suing family. The exact opposite of what she promised the business community.
Leticia?
Thank you for this opportunity to really clear up and really say the truth. I believe that our police officers and our firefighters ought to be treated fairly. The evergreen clause is a way to have something in effect when a contract has run out. Unlike other unions that can go on strike, our police and fire do not go on strike. And so this evergreen clause stays there to say that if a contract isn't achieved, that it's status quo. And right now I can tell you that it's 10 years. That is just too much. Number one, which police officer would stay on the streets not having a salary increase for 10 years? And it's wrong for our city. The question that was proposed is, do I support that evergreen lawsuit? My answer is, as mayor and as a leader, I would have never let it get to that point in the first place. You're right, Mike. I don't like it when people run to the courthouse, when family sues family. We should have never gotten to this point. We should have had leadership to solve this ahead of time. Now that it has been solved, we know that in negotiations, you use every tool. And the city had every right to use parts of the lawsuit or anything to get to a conclusion. So the big difference is here is that, yes, I support us having a fair contract. The difference between a lot of us is that you want our police officers to be willing to take a bullet and you want them to take a pay cut. That's not fair. We need to make sure that in this contract that no one gets a pay cut.
Okay.
Their families deserve to at least have the same take-home pay.
All right, Tommy, I want to let you weigh in on this one as well.
Well, I think that what really went wrong here was the vacuum of leadership that existed between the last mayor and the current interim mayor. I think that a goals clarification with the city manager would have been appropriate to make sure that instead of throwing gas on the fire by causing, the kind of incendiary activities and things and words back and forth that went on, that the city manager kindly step aside and be the consultant that any good city manager must be, and let the mayor give the primary direction along with the council. I think that's what really starts. Every one of us has run for office. We've knocked on doors, we've grown up here, we've got tons of connections in this community. That's the adhesive quality that an elected official has that the city manager will never have.
All right.
Randy, there's a charge that was made that we're advocating for a pay cut to police officers. That's not true. Not true at all. In fact, I believe the last proposal offered a pay increase for our police force. What the city is asking for is that the officers will pay for all of their health care. We'll do that as a city. But it's their dependents that we're asking to pitch in for co-pays or part of the premium.
Mayor Taylor, is that the sticking point you said when there was only one or two left?
What I wanted to say is that it's real easy to be the Monday morning quarterback. So I could have done that when I came in because the tone had been set. What I did was work hard to get everyone back to the table and get us to the point of resolving the contract. And yes, we were within maybe one sticking point. The police union had already stated that they would allow the lawsuit to play out in court, and we were focused on resolving those issues related to wages and health care. And we were within sight of that agreement where both sides could achieve what was beneficial for both sides, but for the endorsement. And so again, I submit to you that I believe that that reflects self-interest and not community interests.
All right. We'll get to in closing statements. Again, you'll have the chance to address each other if you want or not. I want to get to another thing that's been in the news again recently, a couple things actually. The non-discrimination ordinance. As the council was drafting a letter to send to the state lawmakers to say, stay out of our business, the non-discrimination ordinance became an issue as to whether to put that in that letter or not. First of all, what do you think of that non-discrimination ordinance? I may know the answer, but also by the push by state lawmakers to preempt or nullify, in some cases, local control, local ordinances, which could be a bigger issue the farther the legislature goes along. I'm not sure who we're starting with on this one, but I think Leticia.
Yes, as a member of the legislature for 24 years, we know that it has always been that our local officials who really are closest to the people, who set those local tax rates, ought to be able to have those ordinances. There are many that the city has. They set the tax rate, the payday lending ordinance, the non-discrimination ordinance is just one of many. But if you really want local control to make sure that your city and county officials can keep that tax rate, that you really need to support local control. What's happening in the legislature now is not just a reflection of what was happening with the non-discrimination ordinance. In fact, the impetus was that the city of Denton and other cities in the Metroplex, their citizens voted on a ban on fracking. And it wasn't until that ban on fracking occurred that we saw this huge push at the legislature to say that the state legislature should have the ability to set statewide rather than local communities. I stand by the fact that your local communities and your local elected officials should set the tax rate and should be free to do things like our payday lending ordinance and our non-discrimination ordinance.
And you are for the non-discrimination ordinance as written?
Absolutely. I am for that non-discrimination ordinance as written. And nobody should be discriminated against about who they love if they're a city employee or they're an employee of someone who gets a tax break from the city.
Mike?
I believe that if you show up to work, you play by the rules, and you get the job done, you shouldn't be discriminated against based on sexual orientation or sexual identity.
And how about the local control issue with the legislature? What can you do as a mayor besides draft a letter?
So this value, I believe, is broadly shared. And in San Antonio, we need a mayor who's going to stand up for our values, whether it's this issue or protecting our trees or allowing us to set policy in regulating predatory lenders. This is important. We need a mayor who will have a clear and strong voice on local control, unwavering.
Tommy, non-discrimination ordinance. What do you think of that as written by the city? And also, how do you deal with state lawmakers who want to, in some cases, preempt or nullify city ordinances?
Well, I think they ought to stay out of our business. I think they have plenty of their tentacles in our business as it is, and I think that that's something they could steer clear of. They have enough controversy and challenges up there in Austin as it is. I've been there, seen the challenges. They work very hard for not a lot of money unless they're able to retire. But the fact of the matter is the The NDO's been debated here, been there, done that, got the T-shirt, so to speak.
And you're for it, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Yeah, it should really, no big deal to me. I think.
Okay. And Mayor Taylor, again, this became an issue. You were against the non-discrimination ordinance when it came up, and then when the letter was being drafted to send, there was a question as to whether it should be.
Sure.
How do you feel on that?
I stand firm in my commitment to local control. I believe strongly that we as San Antonians should have the opportunity and that we have the right to control our destiny here and make decisions that are in the best interest of our community. I've articulated this position in many forums, and as mayor, will continue to promote this. This is a major part of our legislative efforts this session, and we will continue in that regard.
All right, and now the non-discrimination ordinance itself, which you were against, and you've called, bringing it up now, a political stunt. A lot of people have attacked you for that.
Sure. I did not vote for the non-discrimination ordinance. I voted against it because it applied to businesses who have contracts with the city. In 2011, I voted for domestic partner benefits because it was just about our city organization. And I believe the city should lead by example and should not, I felt it was an overreach for us to apply that to small business owners, and it may put them in a position of choosing between their faith and the law. But certainly I believe that we should not discriminate against any San Antonians. I characterized the ordinance in a certain way because when I became mayor, I found much to my surprise that no efforts had been made to actually implement the ordinance or to put in place any practical measures if someone should have a complaint. As mayor, I am tasked with upholding the law of the land, and so I have worked to put those procedures and staffers in place.
All right, now we're going to move on. We are about out of time here. We have time for maybe a question or two on the web. So I want to ask you, each of you, what you see that has been off the radar in San Antonio that should be on it. Everybody agrees about education, public safety, transportation. But what do you, as a visionary, as a person out there whose fingers are on the pulse of this community, see as some of the next big issues that you would make a priority or that you would look at as being as important as anything else down the road that we haven't talked about in the media, or that you haven't talked about much, at least, in this race? And I'm not sure if we start with Mike on this. I think Mike.
Sure. You know, we've talked a lot about how to make San Antonio a city of opportunity for our young people, for our folks who are of working age, growing our economy, diversifying it. But we also have a very large aging population, a senior citizen population, and it's expected to continue to grow. And so we need to put some things in place to ensure that our elders also have a high quality of life. As mayor, I want us to investigate and spend some time figuring out how we can help our seniors live longer, more independent lives in their own homes. And when they need to transition to a group home, that they get to stay in their neighborhood community, and that those group homes are being given proper oversight so that the quality standards are suitable.
Tommy, what do you see that's off the radar right now that you would focus on?
Well, coming from the county, I can't help but think of the city's role in helping drive down the crime rate in this community. Most of the people that are checked into our Bexar County Jail by the city of San Antonio, and most of the people in that jail are checked in by the city, have no process through which they might go that would help them to never ever reoffend. 75% of everybody in our jail has already been there before. We have usually 4,000 inmates. Every 400 is $8 million. The city doesn't pay a plug nickel for those. So the least they can do is get off of their como se llama and get to work on making sure that they're pulling their end of the deal, which is a pre-entry program where you cautiously and carefully take those off the streets that need to be, and everybody ought to be, they're in the jail.
All right, Ivy?
Well, tonight we haven't talked about quality of life. I think that is a key part of what makes folks want to stay in San Antonio and what makes people want to move to San Antonio. And there are a lot of components to that, but I believe some of the key investments that your City of San Antonio organization makes relate to parks and libraries, and we have a wonderful asset in our greenways trail system that I believe could we could even improve. And I urge voters to go out and vote for Proposition 1 and 2, which will focus on providing additional funds, and specifically Proposition 2 will provide additional funds for that Greenway Trails program that provides San Antonians the opportunity to recreate safely, and also for us to focus on more places for San Antonians to gather and get to know each other more.
All right, Leticia, what is off the radar that you see out there?
It's very simple for me. People are not talking about this, but it is so important for San Antonio. We're Military City, USA, but we're not Veteran City, USA. As mayor, I would focus on our military installations, keeping them vibrant and strong, attracting new missions, and making San Antonio a veteran-friendly destination, whether you're a career military officer and want to retire, or you're someone new that has only served for a few years. We know that with the sequestration in the federal government, that we've already seen a downturn. And that means that we've already lost a brigade combat team out of Fort Bliss and Fort Hood. We need to make sure that we secure and do everything possible so that San Antonio remains that premier place for the military. And as far as the veterans, the city can start by making sure that at least someone who has been a veteran, who has put their life on the line, who's made sure that we can live in a representative democracy, they ought to at least get a job interview when they apply for a city job.
All right, we're about out of time. In fact, we are on the web, but on the web we're going to go over just by a second or two. You will have time for a closing statement here at the end, but first I'd like you to just snap question. What are the 5 words that you would use to describe yourself that you think are most important about you, and how that relates to you as a San Antonio mayor? And it's a quick question, but off the top of your head, Tommy, 5 words to describe you.
Ubiquitous, energetic, tenacious, educated, loving.
Okay. Ivy?
I'd start out with humble. Tommy took one of my words. Tenacious. Smart. Mom. I think that provides a great perspective. Was that 4?
That's 4.
Driven.
Okay. Leticia?
Blessed, courageous, experienced, visionary, and grateful.
Mike?
Hardworking, dad, integrity, aspirational.
Wow, this debate should have gone this way the whole time. Okay, I got one. Dog person, cat person, Tommy?
Oh, dog.
Dogs.
4 dogs.
Dog.
Wow, I didn't. Okay, this is great. The web can do this. We're going to move on now to your closing statements. So again, if you could keep them brief, we appreciate your time. And I think Tommy again goes first now.
Okay. First of all, thanks again to Fox News and Channel 4, and Randy, yourself, for helping us to have this forum. It seems to me that this town is ready to go back to basics. And when I've watched over all of my 66 years, I have watched many of the older neighborhoods who are only presaging what will happen to the newer neighborhoods go without the kind of street repairs that they need, the kind of crime-free, safe, sustainable neighborhood qualities that citizens should be demanding, that don't have the kind of flood control. Barbara Street, my heart goes out to you. Same with Espada. They would have the kind of walkability in these neighborhoods where they're free from any fear of anything happening while they take their walk, and that small businesses, perhaps those along those urban corridors that really have needed to be rejuvenated, would find their way to a bright and sunshiny future with a lot of hope and optimism for their long-term sustainability.
All right. Ivy?
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this evening. I'm asking for your support to allow me to continue serving as your mayor. I'm not a career politician. Of the folks that are here today, I'm the only one who's never run on a partisan ticket. I am a dedicated and experienced public servant who wants to continue working on your behalf. As your mayor, I stopped the unpopular streetcar project, brought the police back to the negotiating table, helped bring the council to a vote on the Vista Ridge water supply project so that we can ensure that we have water for our ever-growing city, and also brought together a charter commission to address governance issues. As mayor, I'll continue working to ensure that we're economically competitive, that we have a smart, fiscally responsible government, and most of all, that we act together as one San Antonio.
Leticia?
Thank you very much for listening tonight, or hopefully you will be seeing this live streamed many times. I'm grateful to the people of San Antonio who have offered me the opportunity to serve them for 24 years in the legislature. I want to bring the experience that I have in solving the really big problems of looking ahead of time to prevent crisis and work with the council so that San Antonio is on a sure footing. That means I'll be the mayor that keeps taxes low, that respects all of our neighborhoods, that understands that we've got to have a focus on streets and drainage, on public safety, and on our workforce and creating jobs. I know that this city is an old city with a rich tradition and a history, almost 300 years, but our best days are yet ahead of us. I ask for your support, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mike?
Well, on this stage, I'm the only candidate that's been straightforward with his singular commitment to be your mayor. I didn't run for one seat, lose big, and then decide I'd run for mayor. I didn't tell council colleagues that I wouldn't use the seat to run for mayor in order to earn their appointment to the seat. No, I've been clear, straightforward, and unwavering in my commitment to serve as your mayor. For me, I've been in pursuit of a single goal, and that is to make San Antonio a city of opportunity for our people. For those that earn an education, acquire 21st century skills, I will work tirelessly to make sure that our city is seen in their eyes as the place to start businesses, launch their careers, and raise their families. I respectfully ask for your vote and your support so that we can lead our city into a new chapter, a brighter future for San Antonio.
I want to thank all of you for being here. We appreciate it. I know this, you may not know this, but this is like their 38th particular forum or debate together. And in this one, they did not have any handlers in the room. It was too short, too small for that. But we want to thank them for being here. Want to make sure that you know Election Day in San Antonio is May 9th. That is a Saturday. We are not only electing a mayor, we are electing 10 city council members, all 10 districts up for grabs, and also 2 proposals, 2 propositions, and 4 charter amendments. So if you can, get out there. We will also, of course, be continuing to cover the mayor's race, the city council districts, and other important political issues for you here on News 4 San Antonio and Fox San Antonio. Thank you for watching on the web, and I wish we had more time because we'll find out more than just if they're a dog or cat person, although I think that made news here. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Decision 15, San Antonio Mayoral Debate.